Pokemon that has some solid stats across the board. That 95 on the hit points, 80 on the defense, and 70 on the special defense means we can survive some decent neutral hits, if not some stronger neutral hits as well, and then have a good amount of offense to back us up. Now, one thing that's been interesting about the 5th generation so far is, like, it's really shy about the speed. That we don't have any, like, outrageously fast Pokemon or natural sweepers just to begin with, and we do have to change around the stats or really work with the strategy to try to get the most out of the Pokemon. That 92 base speed, pretty solid in its own regard, but again, we're not like a 115 base speed Pokemon. We're not outrageous, just going to outspeed everything, going to crush it, and even then with 92, fall shy of that 100, and then there's just a lot of interesting things to break down from there. But 117 attack means that we have a little bit of bulk. We can take that hit, we can dish a stronger hit back, and sometimes that's really all you need. Also, 92 speed means 1 speed boost, and we're going to be good to go, and we don't have to worry about our offense as much, since it's starting to get into a really good position. Looking at its typing, it's the ground dark typing. Now, Krookodile's evolutionary line are the only Pokemon that have this typing, so it is something we don't see every day, which is why it might need a little bit more to remember. However, very frail typing, unfortunately. Ice, fairy, grass, water, bug, and fighting weaknesses. So we get a little bit of weakness from each. That we get water, grass, and ice from our ground, and then fighting, bug, and fairy from our dark. But we do get 2 immunities, so electric and psychic as the immunity, and decent resistances overall, so that's going to be Krookodile. Hopping into Pokemon Showdown, Krookodile is another one of those Pokemon where we just have to kind of choose what we're going to do with moving an item. We're going to be doing a lot of damage, and then we also have Stab Earthquake. I mean, Ground and Dark is excellent, just considering what this Pokemon can get. Then we get Stone Edge or Rock Slide, depending on what you want to use. Most times whenever you're using Rock Slide, it's just going to one-hit KO Talonflame, Charizard, or it's going to have a good amount of damage against whatever we're hitting super that we need to hit it against. It is better accuracy, 90% accuracy compared to 80%, so it depends on what you want to play. I've seen a lot of games won or lost just whether or not Stone Edge hits or miss, and that could just be a problem to deal with. So sometimes you stray away from the accuracy, other times you can deal with it. The interesting thing about Rock Slide though is 75 base power, super effective is going to be 150. A neutral knockoff is going to be the same damage. So Rock Slide would only be for those like 4 times super effective hits. If you just want better flying coverage or something to break down ice type Pokemon or whatever rock is going to hit super effective, then that's when you want to run the Stone Edge. And we also get access to low kick or superpower. Now, this is just that kind of situation where, okay, with superpower, you know you're going to be making yourself more frail as well as weaker offensively, but it is a stronger hit. That will be the difference between deciding a KO or not in a lot of situations. So superpower is good, but at the same time, with Earthquake being a super effective hit, it's really only going to be for bulky normal type Pokemon like Mega Kangaskhan. So if you already have a way of dealing with those Pokemon, then you don't need superpower. If you don't, then superpower is going to be a bit more necessary. And then we also have Krookodile's abilities, Moxie, Intimidate, or Anger Point. Now, it's mostly going to be between Moxie and Intimidate, and Moxie is going to be the more used one, but Intimidate is still good if you want to bring a bit more utility. If you're bringing that utility, then you can play your team around it just a little differently, but overall, you want to get Moxie going as soon as possible. That once you get a Moxie Snowball, then that's how you win games. This Pokemon's attack is raised by 1 stage if it KOs another Pokemon, so that's why it's so snowball. Generally, the quickest thing to think about is Choice Scarf. So this is why having the 92 speed ends up working out. We Choice Scarf to 83 base speed, and then we're good to go, which means we can even run an Adamant Nature on that Choice Scarf, but we are going to be locked down. That with Knockoff, if we don't get a one-hit KO off of Knockoff, which isn't going to be that likely, because in the end of the day, you know, even if we're removing an item, it's only going to be barely a 100 base power move, and that gets stabbed, and it's not going to be super absurd, even after a +1 attack boost. But Earthquake is going to be kind of in that same realm. So it's going to kind of be about 2-hit KOs and whatnot, and then it kind of takes away the meaning of having super effective hits. However, it is the best for that snowball. If you have Stealth Rocks up on your opponent's side of the field, or if you're in the middle of the game, you know, Krookodile comes in, outspeeds, Knockoff, that's just finishes off the Pokemon, gets a KO, you get the +1 on the Moxie, and then you just kind of hope for the best. So, you know, you use Knockoff again, might not KO, it's only a 65 base power move, like we said, it doesn't have the insane amounts of damage, but it's an easy 2-hit KO with Knockoff or Earthquake, so you're just kind of running into that. And then you get the +2 on Moxie. Now you're one-shotting everything. So as long as your opponent doesn't resist you, which is pretty obvious because you're going to be scarfed and trying to get that snowball, it could be something to deal with, but that's the thing. Krookodile is predictable. You need to bring in a situation where your opponent doesn't have any better option of dealing with it, and it has to give up that Pokemon and give it into Moxie. That you have to be a little more unpredictable, because if they switch into something that resists you, well then it kind of ruins your momentum, and if you don't score the KO, that could get pretty bad, which is why people might want to run the Life Orb, that it does give you the options. But if you're running Life Orb, then that means you're going to have to run the Jolly Nature to try to get as much speed as possible, and then you boost into the attack and you're good to go from there. So this is what I mean by just trying to change around the moveset. It's going to be the same core of moves pretty much however you do, but do you want to run Speed Nature with offense boosting or Offensive Nature with speed boosting? You might see the Lumberry on Krookodile, you might see a Focus Sash, you might see other things trying to get Krookodile to work, and that's why you could also run Bulldoze. It's a 100% chance of lowering your opponent's speed by 1, so the idea behind this is that you lower their speed, so you do a little bit of damage, you break sashes, you soften them up, and then you're still freed up. So now that you're faster than them, you outspeed, you get the KO, and you can kind of run it like that. So also, it depends on playing around your opponent's faster Pokemon. This is going to be able to knock down a sweeper pretty effectively, especially with a Focus Sash, that even if they have a super effective hit or an incredible hit, you do that, and then you get your Moxie boosting, so you can play through and still have options, so that can work out as well. And it's also good utility in doubles. That Krookodile in doubles, you can run the Moxie or you run Intimidate, you Intimidate Bulldoze. Now they're losing attack, they're losing speed. You put it next to a Levitate Pokemon or Flying type Pokemon, and there are some options you can play around with this. Now, in some weird Krookodile cases, I have seen Krookodile run Rocky Helmet. This is kind of a bad idea, because if Rocky Helmet finishes off the opponent, then you're not getting the Moxie boost, because it's only through direct attacks. However, if you use Rocky Helmet to soften up the opponent, you still have a strong hit. That can work as well. So you might see like defensive, offensive investment, maybe a bit of defensive as well, because you're going for that Moxie Snowball. That if you can stay alive through 2 KOs and use Krookodile to bust down your opponent's tanky Pokemon, then that can work out better. Now, as for Assault Vest Krookodile, it's an interesting Pokemon as well, because you are trying to get over Krookodile's speed issues. That, you know, with Assault Vest, you're not getting speed boosting, that it does kind of promote a more tanky Krookodile, unless you're specifically looking for like special attackers, so then you can still run speed and stuff. The idea is to get Moxie going. Now, Assault Vest works out pretty well because you can technically power a punch, get that damage boost, survive a hit, and then try to get the Moxie into offensive moves. So that's where we have Earthquake, Knock Off, something like that. So it is something that can work out in this situation, but it's going to be specific. That if you aren't seeing special attacks, then Assault Vest really isn't doing anything for you. And with this, it probably would be the Jolly Nature kind of thing again. So it's all about getting that setup into survival and as much Moxie Snowball as possible. Choice Scarf is going to be your best bet for just overwhelming your opponent. That if you get the 1 to 2 free KOs off of Choice Scarf, that's how you just win, but you are going to be locked and predictable. Life Orb, easier to get outsped, easier to get KO'd. Assault Vest, going to make it specifically harder to KO you in some areas. I don't know, like I do ignore Assault Vest on quite a lot of Pokemon according to the comment section, but I just feel that it's not a great item unless the Pokemon has like super high amounts of defense, super high amounts of hit points. We're trying to put it on a pseudo sweeper Pokemon. I feel you're just kind of clouding the identity and putting you into like really specific situations, but it does give you more like revenge options, that if you get knocked out by a special attacker, then you can bring Krookodile in a better situation. But a lot of special attackers are the weaknesses of it. That fairy type attacks, water type attacks, grass type attacks, you still don't want to eat those even with Assault Vest, and then that means you do have to have the hit point investment, so you're losing speed. It starts getting pretty convoluted and specific, so it is an option. And I haven't ever seen a Krookodile succeed with Assault Vest, so just kind of keeping to however you can make it work. If you guys enjoyed the video, that's how you use Krookodile, and I hope you all